you need to go through some heartache. You need to have disappointing experiences. You need to know what it's like to feel lonely or feel like you're in the wrong place or you've made the wrong choice and how you've overcome that. You want to know what it's like to fall in love and find your people. And that whole spectrum of life experience is only going to help when you're writing a book.
I don't know what I'm going to write. Normally I'm finding out what happens as the character does.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good morning, Keshe. It is so nice to meet you and have this novel conversation with you today.
It's so nice to meet you too, Jess. It's amazing that we can connect across states like this. It's incredible.
We obviously had a little chat on Instagram last night. It's wonderful that authors can find each other so easily now and make connections. It's just beautiful.
Yeah, I think one of my favourite parts about being an author is literally talking to other authors because no one really understands what it's like to go through this process unless you've done it yourself or you're very sort of adjacent to the industry. And so, talking to other authors is just it's my jam. I love it. It's like I finally found my people. It's incredible.
They're the best people. Well, should we kick off with some rapid fire questions to start?
That sounds great.
Let's do it. All right, I'll start if you like. Keshe, what's a bit of inspiration that made it into your debut novel?
Just a lot of Chinese mythology. I was really just so happy to be able to incorporate that into the book.
Oh, it's so fun. And it's so exciting for readers to be able to learn all about that too.
Yeah. Jess, city versus country, where do you work best?
I work best from bed. I can do city or country, but bed all the way. What is the most surprising piece of feedback you've received from a reader?
When I was told not to give one character the idiot ball all the time. Don't make anyone too idiotic. How did you react when you first heard that you were going to be a published author?
I had a couple of glasses of wine, so I was a little bit tipsy and then I burst into tears and started crying.
Oh.
Keshe, biggest challenge in transitioning from your past career to being a published author?
I think learning how to write in a compelling way and not a dry academic way, basically. For you, Jess, what has been your most unexpected part of the whole publishing process?
How long it takes. You need to be very, very patient.
It is an exercise in patience, that is true.
Keshe, do you have any writing rituals or superstitions?
I have zero writing rituals, but I do have a superstition, and that is whenever I see ravens, that I know I'm going to get some good publishing news. They're my positive omen.
I love that.
What's the best piece of publishing advice you've received?
The best piece of advice I received was to get an agent, just to make sure that I could focus on the writing and they could focus on the business end for me. My last rapid fire question for you, being a veterinarian, dogs or cats?
Cats. I'm a cat specialist. I like both dogs and cats, but I like working with cats more because they are smaller. They are more ergonomic to work with. They are also more mysterious, so they don't tend to wear their symptoms on their sleeves so much, and you have to do a little investigation so it appeals to my, problem-solving nature.
All right. Keshe, I'm dying to know, because your books, as you mentioned, have these seeds of ideas that started in Chinese mythology, and then you take them into your books and create incredible fantasy stories out of them. And I think your upcoming one has a little bit of Gothic in it as well. So what drew you?
Gothic.
Yes, and I love Gothic too, as you know. What drew you to that genre of fantasy and mythology? How did that come about?
Well, it came about very organically, I think, because a lot of the stories I read as I was growing up were very fantasy, mythology in basis. I have always been a huge fantasy reader. I loved paranormal romance, and that was a big thing as well. And I think it was just very natural to bring some of my own culture and heritage into it. But there are influences from multiple places. I think I find it very hard to stay in one lane, whether that's genre-wise or whether it's, to do with the inspirations because, like you said, my upcoming book, For No Mortal Creature, has got a very heavy Gothic influence, and I took some inspiration from places like Wuthering Heights and Inception, as well as some Chinese superstitions and things like that, and kind of mashed it all together. So, Yeah, I think it was really natural because I grew up consuming sort of like Chinese stories, but I also grew up because I spent most of my childhood in Australia. I grew up consuming Western media. So yeah, that was just something that I played around with and had a bit of fun with.
Was there a lot of research that you had to do with the clashing cultures to be able to represent that?
Yeah, I have to do a lot of research because I want to get it right. I want to get things, do them in a sensitive way. And I think even when you are from a culture, you feel as though you want to do that justice. And then there's some other research that is like, you have to really get into it, like get into the pulp of it, because I remember like for my first book, I had to research like the lead content in like bronze vessels in like one of the imperial Chinese dynasties, because that was like a turning point in the book. And yeah, I came to the conclusion that I think a lot of people in multiple cultures in the past probably had lead poisoning, and maybe that was the reason why so many of them behave so badly. I don't know. But yeah, I remember reading academic papers on that, and that's where sort of like having that academia background and a creative sort of, creative side, it really helps because you can sort of like take tangible research and then apply it to this like creative world, and that's really fun.
It is really fun, and you find yourself researching things that you were never interested in before. Like with the farm, even though I live in a rural area, I was having to research hunting and what that means for men in particular, and even just getting the description of the drive right to the place and what fish are in that river and the type of fishing right, the type of gun right. Like it just, there's so many little things, even in a modern novel like mine, that's contemporary. And it's also interesting when you talk about wanting to be sensitive and appropriate to different cultures. Even with my modern novel, my main character is Lebanese, like myself, and you feel, I guess in some ways you want to represent that in a book, because I know growing up in Brisbane I didn't see any of that. But at the same time you are also not saying that you're the sole representative of what it means to be Lebanese or have these particular feelings. So it's always really interesting when you're trying to marry these sort of two impetuses together. But that's also the fun of it as well. Do you find that you like the writing part and the grappling with the story and putting it all together, or do you find that less fun than, say, editing or daydreaming?
I feel as though my least favourite part of the process is always what I'm doing right now. I'm always like, I wish I was like right when I'm editing and like, I wish I could write something new. When you have that calling for the next idea and you're like, I just want to start that, but I have to edit this one. And then when you're drafting, you're like, I wish this was done, and I wish like I had a full manuscript and I can just be editing. So yeah, I think all of it is challenging, but it's also so rewarding because I think I like getting to that end stage and being like, yeah, I'm really proud of what I've done, because it's such an involved process. Like you said, there's so many little things, and it's not only just the little things. Sometimes it's like bigger things, like the structure of the book you have to overhaul, and that can be a really difficult process because, so many things that you change then have flow-on effects to other stuff. There's so many things that you have to take into account all the time. So it is like quite an involved process, as you would know. And I thought it was so funny when you said that you had to research so much stuff. And I feel like every author has just this like really long log of like really unhinged things that they've had to Google. It probably like puts us on watch lists, and I would love to sort of just like delve into some of the really weirdest things that writers have like had to search online, because sometimes it's quite weird.
It is. Without context, it can seem really dark. And then also you end up on rabbit holes, because I'm like, okay, so how did people manage arsenic in their water supply, back in the day? And what is that doing to the landscape now? And I'm just going to read a bit more about arsenic, and that you end up in places you did not expect to be at all.
No, that's right. Yeah, it can really lead you down a path for sure.
It can. It's a good way to waste time as well.
Yes. Yeah, it's a way of saying like, I don't really want to do what I'm doing right now, so I'm going to do this other thing. That's definitely what I do too.
So with your craft with writing, did you ever study writing, or is it more just fueled by your own creativity and the books that you've read and you just go for it?
Like the only sort of like humanities study I ever did was in high school when I did like English. Otherwise, everything was all in the sciences. And so I still don't know how to use commas. Like I will admit that. Like grammar is not my strong point. I think I give my copy editors always like some extra grey hairs. But I never studied it. So when I started writing, all I had was sort of like a love for writing. I had like the books that I had grown up reading and that I read nowadays. Like I said, I did a lot of creative writing in school, and it was always like something that like teachers commented on stuff like that, but like I never really took it any further than that because I didn't really think it was like a viable career option. I didn't think that this was something I could really do. It was just something I was doing as a hobby on the side. And it was really only once I reached like adulthood that I was like, maybe this is something I can do. Like if I don't try, then it definitely won't happen. So yeah, it really is just something that I just do quite organically. Like craft is a very difficult thing for me because my brain just doesn't work that way. Like a lot of people are really good like with structures and with plotting, and they have like, those big charts with like, things going everywhere and
I cannot
like,
do that.
Post-it note, like some people are very organized about the way they approach writing. And for me, I'm just like a chaos gremlin. It's just like me like regurgitating things onto the page, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Unfortunately, I have had to become a little bit more of a plotter, so the plotter versus pantser debate is like, are you a plotter and you plan everything out, or are you a pantser and you just sort of like write and discover what you're writing as you go? I was always naturally a pantser, but now that I am a published author and a lot of the new contracts come, you sort of sell on proposal, so you kind of have to submit an outline, and that is a very difficult thing for me to do, like to actually say, this is what I'm going to write. I'm like, normally I don't know. Normally I'm finding out what happens as the character does. So
Yes.
yeah, so I've had to sort of like force myself into being a little bit more of a planner than I normally naturally am. Are you a plotter or pantser? I think you mentioned that you don't really have the charts and things.
I cannot do charts because I'm not really very visual. And so when people have all their Post-it notes and things and arrows and, the whole red string thing, I just feel so overwhelmed. I'm like, I've got to lie down and go to bed. This is a lot for me.
Yes.
But what I tend to do is I have book ideas that float around for years at a time. And then when the time is right, one will bubble up and I'll be like, oh yeah, I'm really feeling that character or that conflict or that story. And then I'll plot out the first 2/3 just in a Word document, like dot points, just so I can make sure there's enough meat on the bones. But I never plot the last third. I don't know what the ending is when I start to write. I never know. I just trust that the characters will tell me as I get to know them.
Yes.
And it's funny when you're talking about selling books on proposal, because mine is a 2-book deal and I have a second book that I'm still writing right now that will come out at the end of next year. And it was sold on a blurb, like a blurb of a book I thought I was writing at the time, but the plot has changed multiple times. And so I'm like, I just keep reassuring people. I'm like, it's still suspense. There's still landscape. There's still all these elements you want, but like underneath it all, it's like everything's sort of changing in the plot and the ending at the same time, which is really fun for me. And I hope it doesn't give anyone anxiety if they're listening.
Well, I think like in the end product, you won't be able to see all those machinations that went on behind the scenes. Like it'll just be such a cohesive thing, and I'm sure it will work really well. But yeah, it is a process sometimes.
There's always things that change in the sense of when I started drafting book 2, it's actually set in a coastal national park landscape, very isolated as well, because I like to stress my characters out badly. For the ending, I was saying to my husband, I think there'll be water involved. I think I've got to get them into the ocean. And he's like, you really do. And then after a while, I was like, no, it won't work. I can't do it. It's not going to work. So I've come up with this other thing and you just have to like it and tell me it's great. And he's like, So then more iterations pass. I'm like, okay, I'm going to get them where they need to be. So your instincts are usually correct, but it takes a little while to actually get there and have it make sense, which is such a weird process to go through. And then they live in your brain all the time. And you talk to your parents and your friends and your husband like they're real people. I'm like, this happened to Layla today. I had to do this to her. And he's like, that's great. I'm sure it'll be fine,
No, they don't get it, do they? Like sometimes my husband will say, you seem so like withdrawn, like you're almost like in another world. And I'm like, I am. I'm not here. I'm like in like this dark, isolated, snow-covered forest. Like, stop talking to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, you become so immersed in these stories. It's almost like you're living them. Do you want me to ask the next question? Okay.
Yes.
I was going to just ask, how has your previous career in like law and communications and history influenced your writing style and process?
I think it's influenced the process in a positive way. I mean, going through law school, every semester I'd come home and I'd say to my parents, I'm dropping out of this degree now. Thank you for agreeing. And they're like, we don't agree, just keep going. And I'm like, I'm not going to be a lawyer, so I'm going to drop out. They're like, just finish it. They'd always say, even if you never use it, it will be positive for you. It was easy for them to say because they weren't paying the HECS bill, by the way. So,
yes.
you know, sure, intellectually that makes sense. I still had to pay a lot of money for it. But they were right. I mean, history itself gives you such an incredible sense of looking back across events and contextualizing them and trying to understand them from different points of view through different lenses. And the law thing, honestly, it gives you a sense of persistence, of pushing through something that maybe isn't always exactly what you want to be doing and can be very dry, but you get up each day and you get it done. And I think given the amount of rejection in publishing and how long it takes to get published for most people, you need that sense of resilience, of pushing through when you feel disappointed or rejected or that you're not good enough. You still have to get up each day and keep going if you want to be successful. And so I think that's sort of what my university experience taught me. But in the back of my mind, I thought, I'm doing this to set myself up so that I can devote myself to writing later in life, because you don't feel like it's a realistic career straight out of the gate. You've got to earn money. I mean, you've got a family and you've got to be consistent. Reality does come into play. And years ago, I think someone said to me, everyone has a job and everyone writes on the side. And I thought, okay, well, I'm going to have a career and I'm going to write on the side until such time as the publishing deal happens, and then I'm going to devote myself to it. So
for sure. Like nothing in your life is ever wasted as an author, because it just contributes to that rich life experience that you draw on all the time. So it doesn't matter like what your pathway has been before. There's always people that you meet that find their way as inspiration into your stories. Traveling, is incredible because you get to experience new places. You don't always have that ability to be able to really immerse yourself like in a new place without having all the sensory components of it, which come from like experiencing it firsthand, seeing new places, putting yourself in new situations, pushing outside your comfort zone. And like meeting lots of different people, which I think both of our careers probably afforded us, because as a vet, I was always meeting people and, it was very emotionally heavy work that I was often doing. And also, just like experiencing lots of different things in that. Like when I was going through vet school, I did end up working on farms and things like that and seeing like whole other aspects of just life and just existence that I had never previously experienced before.
The way people live in Australia varies wildly depending where you are. And I think if you are always growing up in a city in your little bubble, you're not going to have that point of view or perspective of understanding of the way farmers live and who run cattle or who grow crops and the specific pressures and things like that. But not only that, I think also on an individual level, you need to go through some heartache. You need to have disappointing experiences. You need to know what it's like to feel lonely or feel like you're in the wrong place or you've made the wrong choice and how you've overcome that. You want to know what it's like to fall in love and find your people. And that whole spectrum of life experience is only going to help when you're writing a book. It will never be a drawback. Like you said, it will always be worthwhile. I wanted to ask you, because you've already had a book come out and I haven't had this experience. I am a little nervous. How do you process reviews of your work or reader feedback or even literary criticism feedback of your work? How does that feel and how do you manage it?
Well, I mean, I think it's always hard. It's never going to be easy. I think there's a couple of things that have helped me go through it. Firstly, that feeling that it is no longer like just your baby. Like, you know, you spend so much time like working on a book to begin with, but then after that, it's kind of out of your hands and you have to kind of almost move on from it. Like I have had to move on from several books now and just be like, okay, this is now no longer like just, it doesn't belong to me anymore. It belongs to the public. You know, it's out in the public realm. They'll either resonate with it or they won't resonate with it. And I think sadly, the only other thing that really helps me deal with like negativity is the fact that like no one can say worse things to me than I tell myself on a daily basis. Like I'm so critical. Like, I mean, you know, like I said, I came into this not having formal training. Like I've sort of just fallen into, I've been extraordinarily lucky with getting the book deals that I have gotten and also with meeting all the people that I have met. It's just been like a dream. But, you know, I'm still learning. I don't consider myself an expert. I'm still like working on my craft. I'm still like developing the ability to tell a story. So I'm always telling myself like, you're not there yet. You know, you have not achieved what you want to achieve. And I have book ideas that I've had written down for like years that I know I can't tackle yet. I'm not skilled enough to tackle yet. Like they are in my future, but I have to keep on working towards that. So yeah, I guess like when you get criticism from strangers, you're like, well, you know, like you can't be more critical of me than I am of me. So, so there's that. That's basically it. I don't know whether that will work for everyone, but in the end, like you said, it's that resilience. It's like having gone through so much stuff, like losing people, losing your pets, losing your loved ones. I think it really puts it in perspective that like these things are just setbacks. Like, you know, you just have to ride with it and then, you know, move on to the next thing and use it as fuel for pushing yourself and just striving to become better all the time.
That's such a beautiful way of looking at it, except for criticizing yourself on the daily. I'm going to message you every day on Instagram and say, I think you're wonderful and you're beautiful and you're talented, and tell yourself that instead.
Thank you.
Good heavens. But I agree with you. It would put it into perspective. And I also love what you said about it's not just your book anymore. It was a collaborative effort, which I think is a really sweet way of saying you're sharing the blame for poor reviews.
Yeah, if I get accolades, it's all me, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. The credit comes to me. The criticism gets divvied up evenly. But I've always felt, and I'm hopeful I can maintain this sense of equilibrium that I've written the best book I can, but when a reader reads a book, it's not a relationship between the reader and the author anymore. It's a relationship between the reader and the story. And I can't dictate to that reader what that experience is going to be. That's theirs to have. But ask me again in, 6 or 8 weeks and I might be quite frazzled.
I think it's a good idea to like schedule like a time to do something completely different, like a bit after your debut comes out, because it's so nice to kind of like leave all that behind and just focus on something else. Like I think we went up to Queensland about maybe it was like 3 weeks after. It's always good to have something else that you can use to kind of bring perspective to the whole experience.
Yes, and maybe a positive distraction like a holiday rather than clicking refresh on Goodreads or Amazon all the time to see if people love you or not.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And like I said, often it is a reaction to things that happen in the book or the characters. It's not like a reflection on you as an author. Some of the criticisms are like, oh my goodness, they just kept on making these terrible decisions, or they were miscommunicating with the other characters, or they were just like being heinous people. And it's like, well, if we all wrote stories where everyone communicated well, everyone made the right decisions, everyone was nice and likable, like that would not be compelling to read. Like, I don't know who wants to read a book like that. I mean, am I skilled enough to write a book like that and still make it interesting? I don't think so. I'm not there yet.
No, me neither. I mean, it would be over in 5 seconds. And also I think it's such an interesting thing for people to respond to, because in real life, people make very bad decisions and they compound them all the time. We're human. We are also flawed. We all do it. I mean, I have this joke that I'm an, ex-communications professional, and so is one of my very close friends. But between us, we can't organise anything to save ourselves. And we're always like the two best communications professionals just can't get this right. So, you know.
That's so true. Like, it's so funny to me when people say, I hate the miscommunication trope. And I get like sometimes it sort of feels a bit like, you know, shoved in there. But I think in general, humans are terrible communicators. Like, you know, a lot of us go to therapy purely to learn how to communicate better with each other. Like, we're not naturally good at doing this sort of stuff. So I think it's very natural for characters to miscommunicate as well. So
I also think it's a wonderful puzzle in a book. One of the points that a teacher made when I was studying writing was try to never let your characters say what they actually mean. And I live by that now in my writing, because when you think about it, it's very true to life, but it also seeds a lot of conflict and subtext going on. And it's a wonderful puzzle for readers to be recognising, like as in real life, you're saying that, but I don't believe you. And why don't I believe you? Something's not right here. And I think it just propels things along. So I've always really loved that. But I use tropes. I've used tropes in The Farm, Gothic tropes in particular. I think I used all of them. God knows. And I didn't mean to throw everything at the wall and see what stuck, but I love Gothic stories. And I think it just, the inspiration of all those things growing up, reading Wuthering Heights, Picnic at Hanging Rock, reading Dracula and reading all of these different types of Gothic stories, it finds its way and permeates its way through. So I think if tropes are done well, I'm pro-trope.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really think you can write a story without any tropes. Like they're the drivers of the story. Like they're the things that the story hinges around. And like, you know, TV shows have tropes, movies have tropes. Like, I also am a big fan of tropes. So Jess, what's next for you in terms of your upcoming work? What are you working on next?
Well, I'm eagerly awaiting The Farm to come out on the 26th of August. And as that's happening, I'm writing book number 2, which I don't have a title for yet, but it is another suspense novel set in a very isolated landscape. It's about 4 friends and I put them through the ringer. If they were my real friends, none of them would be happy with me. So that's due to go to edit soon and it'll be out at the end of next year. And that's really exciting. And then I'm just percolating a few additional ideas after that. But how about you? Tell me everything that's coming up for you.
Yeah, so I have my next novel coming out in October this year, which is the Gothic young adult fantasy For No Mortal Creature, which is the Wuthering Heights crossed with Inception with ghosts book.
I can't wait. I can't wait.
That's been really fun to work on because just really brought me back to all of my sort of classic literature Gothic roots. And then next year I have my first adult fantasy coming out, which is an adult contemporary fantasy, and that's first in a duology. Wow. And that one actually draws on my veterinary background because it's about a magical veterinary college or university where they treat witches' familiars and mythical creatures. So in like vet school, you're often like either like a smallies vet, so you're, you know, the type that tends to work with like, you know, dogs and cats and things like that, or you're a largies vet who likes to work with like farm animals and agriculture animals. Yeah, sort of like amps that up a little bit. So in this book, it's a academic rivals to lovers story where one of them is a magical familiars vet and one of them is a mythical creatures vet, and they both want to make ducks. But at the same time, there's like this situation where animals are coming in with like too much magic and they're like, you know, having like explosions and getting burns and things like that. So if they want to sort of get through their course and like graduate, they need to reluctantly team up to figure out what's causing these magical surges that are affecting the animals in a negative way. So that was coming out in May next year. And I'm currently trying to work on the sequel, which comes out in like a year later in 2027. So yeah, so that's what's coming up for me.
That is so exciting. It sounds like a great TV series if anyone's thinking about that.
Oh yeah, like wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Yes.
Yours does as well with all that atmosphere. And like I think definitely suspense makes for such good TV because, you know, like when you're a viewer, you just want to feel that like that creeping sense of dread, and that transfers so well from like a suspense novel from the page to screen. So yeah, that's definitely right. Anyone out there,
yes, we're available. We're available.
Buy our books, yes, for sure.
What advice would you give to aspiring authors, do you think?
So I get asked this question a lot, and to be honest, I think it is just finding your support network, because this is a difficult road, and like it is such an immense privilege. It is so fun so much of the time, but like you said, there are ups and downs. Sometimes you have to deal with disappointments because you're getting rejected, and that continues even after you're published. Like it never stops. And so I think having that ability to have people that you know and can connect with that will cheer you on when things are going well, but also commiserate with you when things are going badly, that is invaluable. I think I don't know that I could have survived to this point without having like my several groups of writer friends that are going along this alongside me, and also people who are ahead of me in the journey. Like I think it's just good to know people at all different stages, because ultimately the challenges all come down to similar things, and it is such a unique thing to be writing books and to be pulling from creativity, but also be striving for this career that is like a commercial career. So I think that having people to go through that with is like the most important thing. But what would you say, coming up to your debut, what would be your advice for people who are working on their debut novel?
First of all, I loved your advice and agree wholeheartedly. For me, I would say just keep going. Just keep going. Don't give up. I think, like you said, there's rejection, there's tough times throughout the journey. And it's not going to be the type of career where the first thing you do gets picked up, or the first published book you have will be this enormous hit and change your life or anything like that. But if you do it because you love writing and you love storytelling, just keep going. Don't give up. That's my advice. Keshe, I have so enjoyed our conversation today and meeting you and discussing all things, not only Gothic, but publishing, writing, editing, and everything in between. I just cannot wait for your book to come out in October, and I'll be there picking up a copy. I'll have to figure out how I can get you to sign it for me. Thank you so much.
And likewise, it's been so lovely to meet you, even though it's on screen. I hope that we can meet in person one day. And good luck for your debut coming out. That is so exciting. I'm so excited for you. It'll just be a whirlwind, and I'm sure there'll be so many fabulous moments. And yeah, it's been so wonderful to connect. So thank you so much, Jess, and thanks for your amazing questions too.
Back at you. Thank you.